Lilly Burckle. The Burckles have been a part of my life since 2012 when I first taught her older brother, Harrison. And I love the Burckles. They're fantastic. I've been looking forward to teaching Lilly since she was just little. And because of Winnie and knowing all of them, I've just really had a great relationship with Lilly. Clearly, I would constantly go and bother her after school. She has so much to offer collegiate, and because she's shy, a lot of times it's really hard for her to access some of those things. But I'll tell you, once you get past the, shy stuff, she can be snarky and really, she tells me exactly what she thinks, as most of you do. So I have really enjoyed getting to know Lilly, and I just expect wonderful things out of her. I will say that the hip thing has been quite an adventure for us all year, but it has given me so much time with her. And it's just been I think it's been nice to get to spend that time with her. So I hope you enjoy what she has to say. She worked really hard on it, and she's really nervous, so we'll just support her.
I'm not afraid of storms, for I'm learning how to sail my ship. Louisa May Alcott. I had a really hard time finding a quote that I actually found relevant, but this quote is to be able to go my own way without fearing what comes next. I have always been interested in crew since my sister, Winnie, went to her first practice. When I went to my first practice in 6th grade, I expected it to be generally easy because Winnie did it and she was good at it, so how hard could it be? I was wrong. Very wrong. It has been the hardest sport I have done so far, and it didn't help having Coach Callie. She always tried to make practice more difficult. She made us go 4,000 meters as fast as we could on the regular. But when it was time to sign up for spring crew, I got too scared to do it because it was on the Ohio River, and I didn't want to flip the boat and die, which my sister made sound so easy. The next year, Evie forced me to do spring crew. The first practice was scary because there weren't enough people to fill the boats, so that meant I would have to switch into those tiny little boats in the middle of the Ohio River. It was absolutely horrifying. I eventually somewhat got the hang of it, except for getting the boats on the water. Those things weigh like 1,000 pounds. But one practice, everything was going okay so far. I switched onto the Ohio River very gracefully, and when it was time to go back, we turned around and head for the docks. We were about halfway back when someone caught a crab, which is when your oar goes too far down in the water and it gets stuck in the current. And our boat fell on its side and was just about to flip over when we stabilized it. We were on a four. Four boats are impossible to flip because of the amount of weight keeps it up. I was horrified. I never wanted to go back there or near a boat again. I refused to go there again. I didn't want to fall in like certain people, but after my mom and a couple of other people told me to go back, and a more negative response from Winnie telling me to never ever go back, I decided they were probably right and I shouldn't let my anxiety get in the way of something I love to do. I stared at the clock all day long, apprehensive of what came after my last class. The closer we got, the more scared I was. But eventually, I made it through the practice. I learned that I should try not to be so scared to step up and try new things because it will almost always work out in the end. I have always struggled with confidence in my academic classes. I always feel like my teachers have set this unachievable standard that they have set based on my sister's success. It has always made me second guess myself and never feel like I'm going to be good enough. I have always had this strong hatred for English class. The things we read about and did were so boring, I just couldn't keep up. A part of it was the teachers, but in 6th grade, I got Miss Payne. I liked her, but we were constantly getting more assignments that I couldn't keep up with. The books we read were so plain and boring, and it took hours to read and annotate. But of course, I wouldn't dare ask for help. I still wouldn't because teachers are horrifying. I would instead go to my savior, Miss Steenrod, during study hall, having an anxiety attack as per usual, and telling her all about how I stayed up all night long trying to annotate the Odyssey, and that I still got a bad grade on them because they weren't right. She would always say the same thing. These words I hated the most. She would always say, go talk to your teacher, but I always refused to move and said no. I would say something along the lines of their sole purpose in life was to torture and torment kids. And then she would go with me, so I would reluctantly agree to go with her. This happened frequently, but I never warmed up to the idea of talking to your teacher when you need help. Why would I want to do that? 7th grade was almost the same, but we had Mr. Beasley. I was kind of terrified of him at first, but after a while, I seemed to figure out that he was somewhat harmless. I never liked English class before him. He made it fun with his jokes and big personality. Mr. Beasley made me actually want to go to class, which is really hard to do. I still hated every assignment he gave us, especially annotating. I cannot tell you how much I hate annotating. I would stay up past 2 a.m., still do, annotating and worrying that I wasn't doing it right or there wasn't enough. It was just a whole mess. Miss Stanrod seemed to not go with me as much as she used to when I was too scared to do it myself. Sometimes I could do it by myself, but a lot of times I dragged a friend along. When I have to go talk to a teacher or something, my mind just blanks, and all that's left is my anxiety, and it takes control of me, and I freeze up because I have no idea what to do, and she somehow always helps me out of it. When 7th grade ended, I was almost excited about 8th grade, but my fear of the new teachers sucked any of the joy out of the summer before 8th grade. I mostly feared English class. From what my sister told me about 8th grade and Miss Cleaver's class, I knew I was destined for failure. So when I found out that Mr. Beasley was going to the 8th grade, you can only imagine the feeling of relief I had. That relief couldn't subdue the immense amount of fear I had, though. In some way, the fear I've had has been a motivator because I won't allow myself to do bad on assignments because of the fear of what it will do. When I don't do as good as I should have, I get very upset and aggravated with myself because I try to hold myself to a very high standard. This year, I've tried my hardest to not be so frustrated with myself when I don't do as well as I wanted. It hasn't worked that well. I have never been a very outgoing person. Ever since day one, I have stuck to my friends at the time and never went far from them. I hold up a lot of walls because I've always been horrified by people and what will happen if I let my guard down. I'm constantly acting different around different people. I am very shy around practically everyone. I'm talkative and nice to a couple people, and to a whole of 8-ish people, I'm really myself. Like I said earlier, I'm usually very shy and reserved unless I'm around my family, very close friends, or even 2 cool teachers. I bet you can guess who. I'm a completely different person around them. I'm mean, sarcastic, and snarky. I know it sounds outrageous. If I was ever in a friend group, there would always be at least one person I didn't completely trust, which made it practically impossible to text on the group chats. Due to my lack of social skills, I never really know what to do in pictures, so I usually don't smile, or I'm just very awkward, and apparently not smiling in pictures is a crime, according to Mr. Flynn. So I've gotten some pretty nice nicknames, like Smiley, which I hated, but I was never able to say anything about it since I was too scared. For some reason, it stuck for the rest of the year, and occasionally people would remember it and start calling me Smiley again. But Mr. Beasley has somehow opened me up a little bit because of his constant nagging in class, so thanks, I guess. I'm usually not the most open person, so every time I looked at the section of the speech, I quickly turned away and went on to something else. When it was finally time to write this section, I was at a loss for words. I didn't know what to say, nor did I really want to say anything personal about myself, but here I am. As most of you probably know, I injured myself pretty bad last summer, and it has been an extremely exhausting and strenuous recovery. I never saw it coming. I remember the day I went to the urgent care center and I was sitting in the waiting room. I was sitting and waiting for the doctor to come back in, and it felt like an eternity. I remember when he told me what happened, and I thought that I had to go to the hospital for an emergency surgery. It felt like a nightmare. That was the worst thing I could have imagined, and it was happening. I wasn't even allowed to walk. Everywhere I went, I had to be wheeled around on a wheelchair. And it was just all so unreal. This last year has probably been the worst time of my life. When everyone was becoming more independent, I was the most dependent I have ever been. It felt like a complete violation. I slept in the front room, I couldn't go anywhere by myself, and I couldn't stand for more than 5 to 6 minutes at a time. I couldn't do anything by myself, and it was painful all the time. I hate asking for help from people, so it doesn't matter who you are, but I have to constantly. It all felt so degrading, and I felt so alone and secluded. I was too scared to tell my friends what had happened. I ended up only telling 2 people when I was in the hospital, and 1 when I couldn't keep it hidden anymore. I didn't tell anyone else that happened, and I hoped they wouldn't be mad at me. I'm so grateful to have the people in my life that have stood by me through this and always make me feel better, whether it's just looking at me with a weird face, or when she says something funny and I always end up in controllable laughter. You're just the best. And I love it when this person paces back and forth, worrying about all her problems and grades, which makes me feel better sometimes about my problems. And I love that she always has something to say, and it's usually along the lines of drink your milk faster, but that's besides the point. One of my favorite things about this person is that I can always count on her to call me because I'm too scared to call her myself. And I love that I can just talk to you about everything that's happening, and every single time you manage to make me smile. So thanks to each of you. For my first dedication, I would like to thank Miss Steenrod. You are amazing, kind, and I owe you such an unpayable debt for your help and guidance through middle school. I don't think I would have made it through without you. You have been such an inspiration, and your room is like a sanctuary that I have always been able to relax and not worry constantly about everything. Mr. Beasley, you have helped me so much with improving my essay writing skills and allowing me to write things that I actually care about, or just being very understanding with not being able to finish assignments on time, or just taking me everywhere. So thank you for all that you have done for me. Mom, you are the best. You always try your hardest to help me with anything I need help with, except for math. And I've always had to rely on you so much these past few months, and you've always been there by my side helping me along the way, so thank you. And last, and possibly least, is Winnie. I don't know how to describe you. You are absolutely crazy, funny, and mean, or sassy, whichever one you want to call it. You have been so much help with finalizing essays no matter how bad they were, and always being able to make me laugh when I need it the most. I would be nowhere where I am without these people, so thank you for somehow always dealing with me and being there when I need you.